Hey guys, welcome to the round 15 NRL betting trend report and preview video for the upcoming games this weekend. We just wrapped up round 14 yesterday with the Monday game with the Bulldogs beating the Eels. And then the next round kicks off on Thursday night. It's only a couple of days of no football, and we've got a full round this week. No, only the one team having the bye, which is the Canterbury Bulldogs. In this video, I'm going to go through all the games coming up, what the odds are, what the odds were last time in the previous meetings when these sides met, who's been covering their matchups, have they been going over or under the total points line, and also go through each game, what I'm considering betting on in that game and how I think the game is going to be played. Before we get into this week's games, though, we'll quickly look back at last week, round 14. Where there are a number of games that were super high scoring. You can see Dragons 56-14, Rabbitohs 46-12, Warriors 42-12. Plenty of teams racking up big scores. Of the 7 games last weekend, 5 of them went over the total points line. So big over round. And with that, the overs have an overall a better record now. 56 games have gone over the total points line. Also, last weekend, underdogs have been really successful in the past 4 weeks in the NRL. Going back to round 11, which was Magic Round, underdogs covered 6 of 8 that weekend. The following weekend, they covered 5 of 8. Last week, or round 13, sorry, they covered 4 of the 5, which was the 5-game round. And then weekend just gone round 14, underdogs covered 5 of the 7 games. So been very, very good through the past month. Underdogs also won 4 of the 7 games. The only favorite to win and not cover was the Melbourne Storm. They are 12.5-point favorites, and they only won the game by 8 points. The only 2 favorites that covered the spread in their games were the Dragons against the Tigers, and then the Panthers against the Manly Sea Eagles were able to just cover. They were -9.5 for that game. So it's been a really good run if you've been backing underdogs in the NRL. This doesn't mean, you just go out and start backing all underdogs. If anything, it's going to start to mean the opposite. If we look at the ATS records so far this season, firstly, you'll notice home sides have been performing the best, but underdogs now have 65-43 overall record. Home underdogs, especially 29-13 overall as well. So plus 16 there for home underdogs. That's been the key spot. Away underdogs are 36-30 overall. Now, looking ahead to this weekend, the first game, Thursday night, Sharks take on the Dolphins. These sides have only met once, which was round 10 last year at Suncorp Stadium. It was classed as a Sharks home game. The Dolphins won that game 36 points to 16. Cronulla were 11.5-point favorites for that game. So Dolphins covered. This time around, they're -8.5. So it's come down a few points. Dolphins have been improved this season. Sharks got back to form last week, beating the Broncos off a couple of poor performances prior to that. They likely get Nico Hines back into the lineup. I think the Sharks win this game, but I think this line is a couple of points higher than it really should be, and it's even started pushing out even further. I've seen 9.5 start popping up as well. So I think that number's just getting a little bit too high. These sides, there's not that great a deal between them overall. Sharks are obviously the better defensive side, but the Dolphins' numbers are fairly good. The issue probably with the Dolphins is just they're a little bit hit and miss. They're not as consistent. Sharks get back at home here. Dolphins come off the bye. So both positives from that perspective. I think Sharks win the game at home. I'm just not confident in taking them at almost a double-digit spread. So how I'm considering playing this game is leaning towards the Sharks 1-12. But I don't really like that overall as a bet. One rule I kind of have is teams that I support, which in this case is the Sharks. In the NRL is I always avoid backing them in situations where if they win like for example, taking them 1-12, if they win the game by 14 points or 16 points, I'm happy that I've won, but I've then lost the bet. So anytime where a team I genuinely support is involved, and even though I bet on almost 10 sports overall, there's only 2 sports where I'm actually passionate about the team I support, which is the Sharks in the NRL and Hawthorn in the AFL. So those two situations are the only time I ever have to worry about this, but I have learned over the years, and this is something I probably applied for about the last 8 years because it then started to get on my nerves a little bit, is taking like the team you like in a 1-12 margin, or minus 8.5, for example, in this case, and then, for example, the Sharks win the game by 4 points, you lose the bet, but your team won, and it's like not as an enjoyable experience. So in these situations, I always look for better betting opportunities. So what I'm most likely doing, even though I think the Sharks win this game by 1-12, I'm going to look to multi the Sharks up with likely the Panthers in the last game of the round and try and get about $1.80 for the two combined. That's how I'm looking at doing it at this stage. But overall, I think the Sharks win that game. Raiders, Cowboys. This is the early game on Friday night playing down in Canberra. Cowboys have a real edge in the attack here. Both sides poor defensively. We got a high total here at 49.5. Looking at this matchup on paper, I was leaning towards the over. However, they have really put this number up high at 49.5. Likely on the back of we've seen a number of really high scoring games lately. So all those totals quickly get cranked up. Interestingly, this matchup, 5 of the past 6 head-to-head have gone under. So that gives you a little bit inkling towards pushing it back down to a slightly lower number. The Raiders are 2.5-point favorites, even though the Cowboys have won the past 4 and covered 5 of the past 6 versus Canberra. The last time they played in Canberra was round 6, 2022, and the Raiders were 4.5-point favorites. North Queensland won that game by 6 points. So we're getting a slightly lower line than we got back then. Interestingly, 5 of the past 6 games between these two sides have been decided by 6 points or less. And, looking at the statistics, there's really not a great deal between them. So probably the most profitable play in best betting opportunity in this game is looking at the try-bet market. Either side to win by 1 to 8 points or 1 to 10 points would be ideal if we could get $1.75 or better for that selection. Rabbitohs versus the Broncos. Rabbitohs have now won 2 in a row. Broncos 4.5-point favorites here. When they met in round 2, Brisbane was 7.5-point favorites. That was in Brisbane. Now playing down in Sydney at the Rabbitohs home, the line is 3 points lower. 3 of the past 4 between these two sides have gone over. We got another high total here at 49.5, significantly higher than their recent meetings. Makes it a bit difficult to get too involved with the total from that perspective. The way I'm looking at playing this game is taking the Broncos to win and cover. Line at 4.5. I'm gonna, waiting to see what happens here. See if we can get it down to -4 or -3.5 would be absolutely ideal. Just get it under a try. For the Broncos to cover. I'm definitely not getting carried away with the Rabbitohs wins against the undermanned Eels and the Gold Coast Titans last week. Not really two teams where you winning those games, rockets you up the rankings by any means. The Rabbitohs are still very, very poor defensively. Overall in the season, they're still conceding over 30 points a game, and the Broncos really should be able to take advantage of it. They were good in the first half. The Sharks overran them in the second half last week. And this looks like an ideal bounce back opportunity. They've won and covered 4 of the past 5 versus South Sydney, so they do have a good record against them. This is a bit of a low game here. Tigers versus the Titans. Gold Coast are 2.5-point favorites. So fairly close market here. Total at 50.5. The past 3 between these two sides have gone under the total points line. Both sides, bottom 4 sides in attack and defense. Makes it a bit of an ugly game to bet into with all that much confidence. Definitely lean towards the Titans to be winning though. I think overall they're the better side. The question mark is them performing on the road. But at $1.64, if I can get more so into the $1.70s, high 170s, then there'd definitely be a bet on the money line. They've covered the past 4 of the past 5 versus West Tigers, and I think they can win this game. The Tigers just have been a little bit hit and miss. They can put in decent performances and then they can be really bad at other times. Tigers showed a little bit early on in the season, but their last 2 months has been really poor. So I'm definitely leaning towards the Titans, but would want a better price to get involved in that game. Warriors versus the Storm. The Storm have won the past 15 versus New Zealand. However, the Warriors have now covered the past 3. There's basically nothing between them here. Games almost pick 'em Storm are small favorites, $1.87 to $1.97. They're playing over in New Zealand. Last time they met over there, the Storm were 12.5 point favorites. That was in round 20, 2022. You'd have to lean towards the Storm to win this game, but I'm definitely respecting the market that they have here for this matchup, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Warriors were to get over the line. Both these sides are fairly even on paper. The Storm are the better attacking side, but defensively, they're both top 5 defensive sides. So I feel like this definitely could be a close matchup, and I don't think there's going to be much between them. Majority of the Storm's games this year that they've won have been by fairly close margins. They've had, a couple of blowout wins where they've won by and racked up a score. But majority of their wins have been close, so I don't think there's going to be much between them. This is another game where you could definitely look at the try bet market, and that's probably what I'm going to be doing if I choose to bet in this game. Also, from a total perspective, these matchups have been going over 7 of the past 8 of them. In fact, total at 44.5 is higher than their past 2 meetings, but a point lower than the last time they met over in New Zealand. But that game did go under. For the most part, you can kind of follow the over-under trends as matchups kind of play out fairly consistently between sides. However, this is one where I feel like just this number is a few points too high, just on the back of the fact all the totals are pretty much 2 to 4 points higher than what we would have seen 2 weeks ago if these games were played. So I'm going to stay away from it. And especially like games where you have 2 strong defensive sides backing the overs, you really want a low number, and we're not getting that here. So just going to stay away from this one. Then the Eels versus the Roosters. Roosters 5.5 point favorites, total 50.5. The Roosters have won and covered 4 of the past 5 versus Parramatta, so they have a really good record. Interesting, the home team has won and covered 6 of the past 7. In this matchup, I really like the Roosters to win and cover. We're getting under a converted try right now. The Roosters are clearly the better side. They're the #1 attacking side in the league, top 4 defensive side, whereas Parramatta are bottom 4 in both of those categories. Yes, they led most of the game last week against the Bulldogs, but weren't able to get it done in the end. And then also the week prior, playing the Sharks, who were slightly undermanned. Without Cam McInnes and Nico Hines. I do think the Eels are being slightly overrated still, and the Roosters coming off the bye, I think they can win this game and win it fairly dominantly. Interestingly, 13 of the past 16 have gone over, including the past 4, but we're getting a 50.5 point total. So overall, just be cautious playing too many overs this week, just as a general. I think there's definitely better betting opportunities, but like the Roosters, -5.5 in that game. Seagulls versus Dragons. There's Manly come up 6.5 point favorites here. The Dragons have covered 5 of the past 6 versus Manly, including the past 3, all as an underdog. There's +6.5 here. The Dragons have been much better their past 2 weeks since they got blown out by the Bulldogs. Their last 2 performances against the Panthers and then against the Tigers have both been a lot better, showing they're capable of scoring points. And going up against a Manly side who's not that strong defensively, I think they're going to find the scoreboard once again. But overall, it's not a game I'm all that excited about betting into with any confidence. Lean towards the Dragons +6.5, mainly due to the fact also that the Seagulls are a team that has really struggled to put games away. Like they find themselves in winning positions, halftime, 50 minutes in, 60 minutes in, and then end up losing those games. So when teams struggle to close it out, taking them at a spread greater than a converted try is definitely risky. But even against the Dragons, who can be hit and miss, and you don't always know what you're going to get, it's just easy game to stay out of. And as bettors, we don't have to bet into every game. We can go through and pick our spots. Especially in this situation where the home team has performed really well in this matchup. They've covered the past 7 straight and also won 9 of the past 10. So that's massively in favor of the Manly Seagulls. So just going to stay out of that game. And then last game of the round, Newcastle versus Penrith. Penrith big favorites here, -11.5. They've covered 3 of the past 4 versus Newcastle and won 7 of the past 8. The only loss there was a draw. Definitely expect Penrith to win this game and win it fairly comfortably. They're clearly the better side. Newcastle are ranked low, especially in attack. Their performance last week against the Storm was a lot better than what we've seen from them previously. But whether they can do that 2 weeks in a row against two of the top teams in the competition remains to be unseen. So I'd be leaning towards the Panthers at minus 11.5, but definitely like them to be winning this game. The total at 45.5. Slightly high, and much higher than their previous meetings. But we do have a good under trend here with 6 of the past 9 between these two sides going under the total points line. So lean not so much towards the overall game under, but I would be interested in the Knights team total going under, depending what the number goes up at. Probably going to be around the 16-point mark, most likely. If we get under 18.5, then it'll likely be something I'm interested in betting into. The Knights are ranked 16th in points for. They're only averaging 17 points a game, and Penrith are the number 1 defensive side, only conceding 14 points a game. So there's not like a ton of room to work with there, but like the Panthers to win and win comfortably to close out the round. So just to quickly sum up the selections, like the Sharks to win the opening game. I'm also looking at them at the 1-12, not at the spread though. But we'll look to multi them up with the Panthers. Raiders versus Cowboys is the game where I'd be looking at a try bet. Either side to win by 1 to 10 points. Broncos to beat the Rabbitohs. Ideally, if we can get that -4, -3.5. Tigers versus Titans. Slightly lean towards the Titans, but don't think there's a ton of value there. Warriors versus Storm. This is a game where Storm have a good record, but not super keen on backing them, and look towards another try bet in that matchup. Either side, 1 to 10. Eels versus Roosters, like the Roosters -5.5. Staying out of Seagulls versus Dragons, but lean towards the Dragons +6.5. And Knights Panthers, Knights team total under if we could get at 3 tries, or Panthers -11.5. But if Sharks win, then the play will be the Panthers into the Sharks. So that's how I'm looking at playing the games coming up this weekend. Also, if you want to use statistics to start finding your bets, and for the second half of the season, really capitalize on all the data that is available for these teams. Like the reason that I created the bet finders for the NRL is because when I first started betting, I knew that I needed to use statistics to be able to analyze games, but there was hardly any good information to actually, go through and break down a game and see how teams stack up. Because, for example, if we look at, the Sharks-Dolphins game to start this weekend, we can see their previous meetings and a bit of their form. And then you've got the statistics here, but it's really written in a way where there's not that much information for you to genuinely go through and study and how these teams match up against each other. So that's why I created the bet finders, which bring together all the statistics from each side. So we got the Sharks-Dolphins here, their overall win percentages and ratings, and then all the key attacking stats, the points, meters, run meters, post-contact meters, line breaks, errors, etc. Everything you need to know from an attacking perspective, where what their average stat is in that category, and where that ranks in the league, whether they're the number 1 team, the number 7 team, and so on. And then same for the Dolphins. And then from a defensive perspective, where each team stacks up against each other. So we can see Sharks are a slightly better defensive side in points conceded, but overall, when it comes to limiting offloads, then the Dolphins are clearly the better side. We do that for every single game right throughout the season. So that's how I'm going through and analyzing games. I'm not just, looking at 2 teams, trying to decide which one I think is better. I'm actually able to go through and break down where team strengths and weaknesses are. Are they going to be able to capitalize on that? And one new tool that I've added in this weekend for the NRL, I've been using this in the AFL for the past 3 weeks now, is the key players. So this is where once team lineups come out on Tuesday night, we go through and update who's in, who's out for every single side. And based off the key metrics, so, try score, try assists, run meters, meters per run, line breaks, tackle breaks, who makes the tackles and the efficiency, etc. For every side, we've got the top players and whether they're going to be in or out for that game. So, you don't need to be like a diehard NRL fan and know every single player to be able to analyze a team and see, are they going to be at their best? Or, for example, if they've got two players out who add a lot to their run meters, that's going to limit them. If their, key try-assist players are out, how are they going to overcome that? That's going to massively affect them, and so on and so forth. So you guys get the idea on how you can use this for every game right throughout the season. Like, the reason I created this is because at the end of the day, we're all about finding, profitable betting opportunities. We don't need to, study and memorize like every player from every team, etc. We can go through and use the statistics, use tables like these and all the other things like I showed you with the betting information as well to go through and actually analyze games. So I'll put the link in the description so you can check out the bet finders and start using it starting this weekend on the NRL. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Good luck this weekend, and I'll be back to preview the following round and rounds right throughout the season. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any videos.